Yes.
If you need to pause or take a break, but it's really pretty casual. If there's a dog barking, I don't really care. um,
Good, because that might happen.
yeah. My children are downstairs baking cookies. They're being very wholesome, but we'll see. They might be fighting, so we'll see if they run upstairs and like what happens with that. But if let me take a note of what time we are at. And this should be about like 35 minutes. And then anything you want me to put in the show notes you can send to me or just add right into the
Okay.
document.
Okay, yeah, if I
By the
can
way,
leave, not later than 2:50 p.m.
Oh yeah, no.
Pacific, because I gotta go do school pickup.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it in a quick 35 minutes, okay?
Okay.
We got it
Okay.
done. We're going to get it done. Okay, and we're recording. Okay. Are you guys ready? I'm going to just do a quick intro.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Nonprofit Nation with your host, Julia Campbell. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. We have a pretty exciting topic, using AI to power social impact. And joining me are Darian Rodriguez Heyman, social entrepreneur, nonprofit strategist, and Cheryl Contee, award-winning tech entrepreneur, CEO of the Impact Seat Foundation. And they are co-authors of the new book, AI for Nonprofits, Putting Artificial Intelligence to Work for Your Cause. And AI for Nonprofits.
We should
May I
stop.
just interrupt you? Yeah,
Sure.
because I think you might have. Can you read out my bio again? I'm CIO at Brightworks AI. You said that
Oh, it says CEO of
formerly
the
was
Impact Seat
CEO.
Foundation.
Yeah, she
No?
was
Yeah,
previously,
yeah,
but not anymore.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. We can start
Do you,
over. Hold on.
yeah, do you need a sorry, I thought I sent you an up-to-date bio, but maybe
That's fine. That's
not.
just in my intro. Senior advisor for posterchild.ai.
Chief Innovation Officer at brightworksai.com. Here I can. Do you want me to just email it to you real quick?
Yeah, I don't know which one I have in the document.
Or you know what? Why
It's
don't I'm in the document? Why don't I just copy and paste? I must have. I did. I'm actually in the document. I must have just
Sure.
scooted past it. Not sure how that happened. Yeah, let's just blurp. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That is totally fine. Here, I'm going to change my intro. Okay, let's see. Okay, pioneering technology entrepreneur and digital transformation expert. And then I just lost it. And Chief Innovation Officer at Brightworks AI. Okay. Sorry, I'm just adding this into the and sorry if that was old.
problem.
What do you want? Yeah, do you want me to let me see. All right, I'm going to say also, Darian, that you founded ai4np.org.
Great.
And you both co-authored this. Okay. Okay, we'll start over. That's totally
Yes.
fine. I'm
All
so
right.
sorry. Thank you for
5,
stopping
6,
me.
7, 8.
Okay. Hello. This is Julia Campbell, host of Nonprofit Nation. Thank you so much for being here with me today, wherever you are listening. Today, we're going to talk about using AI to power social impact. And joining me are Darian Rodriguez Heyman, social entrepreneur, nonprofit strategist, and founder of AI4NP.org, a national hub for AI education in the social sector, and Cheryl Contee, a pioneering technology expert and digital transformation expert, and Chief Innovation Officer at brightworksai.com. And the two of them co-authored the brand new book, AI for Nonprofits, Putting Artificial Intelligence to Work for Your Cause. And AI for Nonprofits is a practical, resource-rich guide based on interviews with 57 nonprofit leaders, including me, who are successfully leveraging AI to enhance fundraising, streamline operations, and engage supporters more effectively. So I was so thrilled to be a part of this book and a part of this project. And I'm thrilled to have you both on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Thanks.
So, Darian, I first met you years ago when you organized the Social Media for Nonprofits Summit in Boston. I don't know what year that was, but that was fantastic. And that was really like one of my first,
I think.
Yeah, that was one of my very first speaking engagements. And that was where I met John Hayden, who became a really good friend of mine, and Joe Waters, who actually became a good friend of mine. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for organizing that. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was, I think, the first global conference series focused on social media for social good. And
yes,
this really builds directly off of that model in terms of what we did with the book, but also, the National Learning Lab series that we're propping up.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. So, Cheryl, let's throw it to you. There is no shortage of hype around AI, and I've had several guests on discussing AI for nonprofits, but this book really takes a grounded and tactical approach. Why do you feel this resource is so urgently needed for the sector right now?
Oh, urgently needed just because AI is not in the future.
Right.
It's now.
Right.
It really is happening now. And in fact, AI has been with us for the last 10 to 15 years. So I think both Darian and I would occasionally talk to, nonprofits and foundations, and they would say things like, oh, well, here at this nonprofit, we won't be using AI. And I, at
Mm-hmm.
least for one, would be like, oh, sugar baby, honey doll. Like, you have been using AI for the past 10 to 15 years. And moreover, it's been using you. That's called classifier AI, but it's been in the background, right? So that's your spam filters, right? That is how your Amazon packages find you
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon and then find you via UPS at your house, right? It's, all of like inventory, like it's all of those things that are operating in the background. Now, of course, in 2022, we had that leap forward with generative AI, and that's AI that can create, and everyone now can participate, in that if they want to. What's coming and what is, we're right on the heels of agentic AI. And agentic AI is AI that can think, plan, and act. So an example would be skej.com, which I use for my scheduling, skej.com. And Lexi, my AI assistant, and Darian has experienced her, I just CC her when someone says, hey girl, let's talk. And I say, Lexi, find us a meeting. And she'll just go out and she'll do all of the back and forth. She can even look at people's calendars online, and then she'll just put the meeting on my calendar with a Zoom or a Google Meet. So, we're entering this world where everything we know is going to change over the next 10 years. And it's so vital that nonprofits take the reins in this moment, because they can lead and show how we can use this technology in ethical, responsible, and powerful ways that help people.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I would add quickly is just that, I think to all of Cheryl's points, there's this unique moment in time. We're sort of at the precipice, and this technology is really just hitting the hockey stick and the growth curve. And, people hadn't really communicated with nonprofits and foundations to help them understand, as mission-led organizations, how can AI be a tool that advances their work with fundraising, with marketing, with programs, with back office. And so, really getting into the tactical and practical tips and tools, that was really the gap that we felt like needed to be filled.
Oh, absolutely. So building on that, Darian, you both interviewed 57 nonprofit leaders for this book. As I said, I was honored to be one of them. But what surprised you most about how organizations are actually using AI?
I guess the short answer is that they're not. as organizations, right?
Right.
Like to Cheryl's point, this stuff has been happening for years, whether it's, all the different types of examples she mentioned. And in general, the state of the union in the nonprofit sector is that over 80% of nonprofits are using AI to some extent in terms of someone on their team is playing around with the tools. It's very common. But if you look at what percentage of nonprofits have actually taken the time to create a simple policy and think about AI at an organizational and a strategic level, it's under 10%. So, it's kind of the Wild West where everyone is bringing their own AI to work and they're using it increasingly in the workplace. But in terms of us as nonprofits, as foundations, very few of us have actually taken the time to get serious about the technology and to think about, to Cheryl's point, what does responsible use look like for us? What is the sensitive data we need to protect and how do we do that? What are the most painful and recurring, functions that we need to do every day or every week or every year that can be augmented or enhanced by AI, and really to start to document acceptable use and put some guardrails in at the organizational level.
Mm-hmm. And Cheryl, what surprised you about the use or non-use of AI in the sector?
Well, your chapter, Julia, is all about social listening.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you say, in your chapter, social listening isn't really about marketing, it's empathy at scale. And I think what is surprising to me, maybe, is, how scared people are about losing their jobs. And that's actually not a thing that we're seeing much of, because you still need the human in the loop, right? Which is actually a technical term, in the AI community. You still need people. You can automate things, but the things that are best automated, in my opinion, are the things that are the most tedious, right? The most repetitive, the boring things, the time consuming and expensive things. If you're able to get those off your plate, that leaves more time for people to do what people do best. And the reason you got into this work in the first place, which is to help others, to listen to them, right? To touch them, right? To change their lives and their outcomes in a positive way. So, what has been surprising is, that people want to continue that empathy, right? And they're concerned that that AI is going to take away their ability, right, to do their jobs, the way that they wanted to do them. And I would posit to you that actually this is an opportunity for you to move all of the worst parts of your job off your plate and
Mm-hmm.
actually do more of the human work that you got in this to do.
Yep. That's really where I think a lot of nonprofit leaders are worried. They're worried about balancing automation with authenticity. They're worried about donor trust. I mean, we know trust in the sector is completely decimated. Trust in institutions, trust everywhere is just decimated. Um, so can you walk us, I guess I'll throw this to Darian, through a favorite use case where AI has made sort of a real difference either in fundraising or operations?
Yeah, I mean, I think fundraising typically tends to be the place where most people, their mind first goes because it's been
Yes.
at the top of every survey of every executive director since I've been in the sector for 25 years in
Right.
terms of the biggest pain points and needs. And I think the reality is the use case that most people come to AI through is around content creation,
Mm.
whether that's, write me an email or a bio or, a summary of this long document. And when it comes to fundraising, especially on the institutional side, where I do a lot of work with foundations and companies, there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of information, some of which is based on stories we've been telling in the past. So to be able to not necessarily hand the robots the keys, but engage AI tools to, number one, identify prospects that we haven't thought of. Number two, to think about how do we streamline and facilitate the communication with these folks, not in cookie cutter language of trying to explain our mission in the same way to every funder, but embracing what I think of as the single biggest determinant of success with foundation fundraising, which is helping them understand that you understand their goals and are somehow in a unique position to advance those. And if
Mhm.
you can make that point in a sentence or two, it is like rocket fuel for your fundraising efforts and grant writing. And so, identifying that sort of Venn diagram and facilitating the communication, the follow up, thinking about as you finally get that meeting on the calendar and prepare for it, what are the big questions I should ask to sort of open the conversation up? What are the parts of our work that are most compelling and most relevant for this funder, and within what frame? Managing the follow up and sort of that alarm clock functionality of staying on top of it and building the relationship over time. So it's kind of every single part of the fundraising pipeline and process flow can be supported and enhanced. Which is true for almost any activity, whether it's bookkeeping and accounting or risk management or other forms of fundraising. And so I think that was really the lens through the book, was looking at these different key use cases and applications, and what are the things that nonprofits need to do on a regular basis, and really answering that question at the level of whether it's social listening in the case of your chapter, or the grant writing chapters, or the bookkeeping and accounting ones.
I love that. Cheryl, do you have a favorite use case or something that
Uh,
just jumps out at you?
Sure. And Darian may have already touched on this, but Susan Murnett, who is great, she wrote a chapter about grant writing, and one of the things that she's doing out here or recommending is, hey, you can do research and write grant reports in a whole new way, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have maybe a target list of foundations that you'd love to have a grant. You can sort of line up, like, here are the programs that we have, compare that, the language we're using, to the language that that X Foundation is using in their annual reports, right? And how would we rewrite it such that it's more in the language that they're using and what might be more comfortable and resonant for them, which is
Mm-hmm.
super smart, right? There's also the you can research a lot more foundations and maybe find more high net worth donors than ever before, if you're using, AI tools to help you.
Mm-hmm. I think that is so smart, because I know that when I started my business, I was a grant writer for hire. And a lot of the nonprofits that hired me, it was just totally quantity. It was like, just send out a bunch of grant proposals. And if I had had something like a chat GPT to help me research, is this a good fit? Like, what do they actually fund? What have they funded in the past? What is their typical size of their grant? Rather than just sort of grasping at straws and kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. I think
Exactly.
using it for research is just such a it's going to save so much time for people. Um, I think for me, when I talk about AI, I use it in some of my presentations to talk about social media content creation and how to like turn your annual report into 10 social media posts, or take a blog post and cut it up and repurpose it. I think for me, so I'd be interested to know how you both address the common sort of the common pushback to AI in the sector. So one is for environmental organizations. I mean, this is something I definitely don't know how to answer. So I'm just like interested to pick your brain on how you address that. I know that I've had environmental organizations say they are very stringently against using any kind of AI because of the environmental implications. So I don't know how you address those and other common challenges. Like, what other challenges have you heard, and how do you address these
Well,
challenges?
I'll start with environmentally, because it is a question that comes up a
Right.
lot
It
in the
comes up a
nonprofit
lot.
sector, and that's good. It is important that we're thinking about this, and right, and it's not the kind of question that came up, for example, with social media, right? No one was really thinking about that, but we
Right.
are
Which
thinking
maybe
about
we
it
should, because
today.
they have data
Yeah.
farms too, data
Exactly,
servers.
or the NSA, or there's lots of data centers out here. What I tell people is, look, a couple of things. First, that cheeseburger that you had last Tuesday is probably way more intense on the environment than the last 10 prompts you put into a Claude or a Chat GPT. Like, let's just keep it real. That doesn't mean that there isn't an impact and that we should not be mindful,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's important to measure things. The other thing that I say is, yes, this is a problem today, like those methane, why would Elon Musk choose methane to power his data center? Like that seems like an unnecessary choice.
Right.
But like, yes, that is poisonous and uncool. At the same time, clean energy is on a snowball like of acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
California, where Darian and I live, is now two-thirds clean energy. It is the largest economy in the world to do that. We
Amazing.
are the fourth largest economy in the world. Europe, at this point, is just about 50% uh, clean energy. Saudi Arabia, one of the largest oil producing
Mm-hmm.
nations in the world, says that they're going to be 100% clean
Mm-hmm.
energy by 2030. We'll see if they get there. But the point is that, we're moving very rapidly, like probably within the next 5 to 10 years, towards, you know, majority
Mm-hmm.
clean energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these people, all of these executives will convert to clean energy if for no other reason than it will be cheaper
Yep.
than something like a methane. Because what do we know about clean energy? It's actually just technology at the end of the day. And what do
True.
we know about technology? It gets over time cheaper, faster, more powerful, smaller, more widely available.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say to people, if you're really worried about, energy use, continue your work towards adopting clean energy, because that really is ultimately the answer. The answer is not we can't have data centers and we can't have AI, because again, as we said in the beginning, you've already been using AI for
Mm-hmm.
the past 10 to 15 years. It's not a choice. It's not right. It's not an
Right.
option at
If
this
you have an
point. Like
iPhone, you
it's
have
in
Siri
everything.
in your iPhone, and that is AI.
AI is everywhere and it's going to be in everything. So instead, how can we make our use of AI as clean and powerful as possible?
Exactly. I just didn't mean to put you on the spot, but that's a question that I get all the time. And I just feel like I'm not an environmental expert and I'm definitely not an AI expert in any way. Another big challenge, I know that it is covered in the book, is data privacy and compliance. So I think, what do you think nonprofit teams really need to know and understand to protect themselves, like both legally and ethically?
Do you want
Yeah,
to
I
take
mean,
this one, Darian?
yeah, sure. I think in general, Julia, what I would say is part of the problem that I've seen in the AI for Good movement is number one, we fail to recognize that we're talking to mission led organizations and we need to start with framing AI as a tool that can advance that mission,
Yes.
first and foremost. And number two is people do have some of these fears and concerns, and we tend to talk around them and try to make people feel stupid for even raising them instead of tackling them head on, addressing them and talking about how to mitigate them because
Yes.
they're valid. Whether that's the environmental concerns, or to your point about data security, that's one of the other top things, along with job loss and some other things that people are very understandably concerned about, and they should be. Because the bottom line is data is the currency in today's AI economy. And the
Mm-hmm.
way these models work, unlike when I studied computer engineering, 30 years ago, where you had to map out every, like, if this happens, then do that to give the illusion of intelligence. Nowadays, the current technology is just based on dumping a ton of data into these large language models and letting it identify the patterns,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, as a result, these companies are hoovering up as much data as they can, and a lot of the predictions are sharing that they're going to run out of publicly available information to suck up next year. So they're looking for data wherever they can find it, and one of those places is when you enter a prompt into ChatGPT. Unless you are paying for that model or you've changed the settings, that data is going into the next training model,
Hmm.
right? So if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And I think
Right.
that's really important to recognize. There are ways you can go into settings and say, I don't want to share my data as part of the training data. And then you can decide, depending upon how sensitive it is, if you're dealing with HIPAA records or you're serving youth and there's personally identifiable information, probably not great to add into ChatGPT, even if you move that slider over. Realistically, that there's sort of the better and then ideal, solutions to the data security issue. Having your own custom large language model where you have using a platform like Change Agent or Cause Writer, where they will sort of put your data in a sandbox so that it's secure. And oftentimes they will also purge that data anyway. So if there's a leak or some kind of hack, there's nothing there. So that's sort of, the current standard and sort of, a good option. The ideal scenario is you're actually going to take all of your personally identifiable information and change it over to Disney characters or numbers or whatever, so there's nothing in there that someone could potentially access.
Right.
That's also a lot of work and takes a significant amount of extra energy that a lot of nonprofits don't have. And so that tends to be out of reach for a lot of groups. But if you're dealing with a small data set, you can do it manually or just do, find and replace. Typically, though, a custom large language model is sort of the right way to address that need for a sandbox and keeping that data secure.
So, Cheryl, what do you think are the most important elements of a nonprofit AI adoption policy? Like, what should we be thinking of if we don't have one at our organization?
If you don't have a policy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, look, folks, studies pretty reliably show that 30 to 50% of employees in any given workplace are already using AI. They
Mm-hmm.
might be using it overtly, they might be using it under the table, but you're already at risk, right? Because how are people using it? Are they, uploading proprietary or confidential information? No one wants to lose their job for using AI. In fact, they're using AI presumably to do a better job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you aren't providing, parameters and guardrails, and even just information on how to keep themselves and the organizational safe, you're really asking for trouble,
Yep.
right? So I think that oftentimes it's helpful. One of the things that I've been doing in my practice are just starting with organizations with the CEO or a leader, just doing a fireside chat, right,
Mm,
with the staff or with the leaders. Like, let's just talk about it. Let's just break the ice, because people are afraid to talk about it. They don't want to get in
mm-hmm.
trouble, right, for using
Mm-hmm.
AI, even though, again, many of them are
It's like the
doing it.
first early days of social media, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I won't name names, but there was a large company that wanted me to write a blogging, remember blogging, a blogging policy back in the day, and they were like, "Okay, so can you write it such that they can't do it?" And I said, "No, because that is unconstitutional. Like, you can't, but nobody wants to get fired for blogging,
Right.
right? So let's just figure out, what feels safe, for our organization, our giant corporation, and what's safe, for individuals." So, I would encourage people to at least start the conversation, right, internally. Just get people talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even do a survey and let people know you're not going to get in trouble. Nobody's, we're not,
Mm-hmm.
we're just trying to assess who's doing what, and
Right.
then figure out, how can we analyze our workflow again to figure out the pain points, and then, put in technology that's going to help us, and that we can all teach each other and learn, and do more in a day than we could have possibly done before.
And
I
if I
love
can,
that.
and if I can just add a couple quick comments, I
Sure.
think what you're asking here, Julia, is really at the heart of what needs to change and happen in the nonprofit sector. Is that
Yeah.
just having a policy, even if it's one, two, three pieces of paper, that immediately puts you at the head of the class and means that you are embracing a culture of innovation and bringing AI out of the shadows. Because to Cheryl's point, people are using it already anyway. And if you're putting no guardrails in place, that's really dangerous. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also incredibly common right now. So it doesn't need to be a big leap. There are a couple places out there like In10 and Fast Forward that will give you a template and a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just invite you to share that with the team. And to Cheryl's point, have conversations, fireside chats, and talk through,
Mm-hmm.
does this feel right? Is it too detailed? Not detailed enough? What is it missing? What feels uncomfortable and not aligned with our values? And, to answer your question, though, the most important things to have on there are, how do we suggest and what is the approved use of
Mm-hmm.
AI? Which tools are approved for which purposes? Number one. Number two, to your earlier question, what is the sensitive data, the personally identifiable information, PII, that we handle, and how should that be handled
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to AI?
Mm-hmm.
And then number three, if you want to go for a little bit of extra credit, is what are the most painful processes and needs that we have in our organization that if someone could rub a magic genie lamp, we would love to automate or streamline or enhance or
Mm-hmm.
augment, and just putting that on paper as like a wish list.
Hmm.
That is a great starting point. It can be a couple pages, and just by documenting those three things, all of a sudden you have thought about AI as an organization instead of just letting it be the Wild West and people running around with tools and not necessarily any coordination or strategy behind that.
I remember creating social media policies way back in the day. And it's so important, especially for like a school or anyone working with youth, because you have to say, oh, are teachers allowed to friend parents, or are teachers allowed to go into public Facebook groups and talk about certain private information? I mean, I think of nonprofits, they have policies around everything. They have policies around how they handle information, they have policies around communication, and they have just policies around almost everything that they do, and procedurally and programmatically. So having an AI policy, but I love that just quick little framework. So speaking of frameworks, the book really includes a lot of step-by-step frameworks, which I love, tactical, practical information. So, Darian, what is one small action that a nonprofit leader could take this week to really start integrating AI into their work?
Yes, I mean, I think to your earlier question about a policy, that is like the thing that it
Mm-hmm.
really represents at an organizational level. We're being intentional and strategic. But I would kind of zoom out to answer that question and talk about sort of a crawl, walk, run
Mm.
framework of, people get overwhelmed and daunted by like, we're busy, we've got too much going on. I don't have the headspace to think about this new tool, maybe later. And it doesn't need to be that complicated. You can dip your toes in the water. Some of the easiest ways to get started are number one, encouraging people to use the tool at home, whether it's, learning a new language or making up recipes or planning a trip or whatever it is, like just personal use cases so they get comfortable with the technology and what it can do is number one. Another thing that Cheryl mentioned earlier is bringing it out of the shadows and creating some kind of regular forum. It could be a monthly roundtable, or the first Monday of every week when people first get back in the office and we hand out bagels and coffee and just go around the circle and everybody share and get invited to share. Have you used AI this last week or last month? And what was it like? What did you learn? What was cool? What was bad? What was, inspiring? What was lackluster? And just opening up that conversation to create that culture of innovation is really, really important. And then finally, just because I know so much of what you're focused on is on the social media side, that is really low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It is, AI is really, really valuable. The chapter that, you helped lead in the book gives some really practical tips for how to identify what content's already working, based on our history, what gets the most engagement, the most clicks, the most shares. Great, let's use AI to create 10 more posts like that, along with taking that blog or that article or annual report and turning it into a podcast, like a 5-minute audio version of it, turning it into an infographic, because that's going to get twice as many likes, comments, and shares on social media, using SOAR to create a short video that's going to get 4 times as much engagement on average. Anything that helps you break through the clutter in today's attention economy, especially when instead of handing the robots the keys and saying, go, write this and post it, no, it's sort of give me some suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Share 10 different potential posts based on what you've learned about what our audience finds most engaging and which hashtags are most relevant. Great. And then you can look through and pick the 3 that really feel most aligned and on brand for you and your organization.
I love that. Cheryl, what would your advice be for one thing that, like, maybe a nonprofit fundraiser can do this week to start integrating AI in their work?
Sure, just play around. I was talking to a foundation, a small foundation, yesterday, and the CEO was saying, "Look, which is a thing that we've heard a lot, actually, CEOs or executive directors saying, "Look, I'm down to do AI. I understand strategically that it's important for us. It's my team that is
Mm.
pushing back, right?" So I'm hearing a lot about that. So I would say just play around. Like she was saying that my team won't even touch it. I mean, they literally have refused. Like, I've opened it on the laptop and they just literally run away. So don't be that person. You know, it's the water is warm. It actually can be really fun. Like, write a
Mhm.
song, go to Suno, Suno, and just write a song and just be silly.
Ooh, Suno. Okay.
Yeah, go to Suno or anything.com is really fun. You can just literally write a prompt, and say, build me, this app. Maybe it can be something silly and simple, and you can watch it, write the app, and even debug itself right in front of you. Or,
Wow.
my kid has this girl, that he has a crush on. And, in order to impress her, he used Replit, Replit, to build her a game in which you can shoot zombies off a train. He's 9.
Oh
But
my
like he did
gosh,
that
you
in
can
five
build a
minutes.
game? My
Yeah,
son would
he
love
did that in
that.
5 minutes. He did it in 5 minutes. Is
Oh
it
my
like,
gosh,
cinematic
Replit.
quality? No. But, or Descript, right? Descript, or in video, like Opus. I like Opus.ai. It can take, like a long video, or audio, and it will actually create mini clips that are social media
I
friendly,
love that.
right for you. It does it for you. And then you can just pick and choose, and it will even rank. Like, here are the top 10 we think that you should use. That'll
Wow.
be the most effective. I mean, it just does all the work for you. So just mess around, just have fun with it,
Hmm.
before you decide, okay, let's sit down and really figure out an implementation strategy.
Hmm.
And if I can just add a couple additional tools that I've been playing around with lately that I
Oh, I
really
love tools.
enjoy, especially from a fundraising standpoint, to the point of your question, Julia, what I would say is like I come across a lot of nonprofits that are trying to get a proposal or an annual report or some kind of article in front of a busy donor.
Mm.
And it can be really challenging to get their time to read it, or especially if you're dealing with a program officer and you're hoping to get through to the CEO too, using a tool like Notebook LM and
Mm.
turning that proposal into a 5-minute audio clip that is at the
Wow.
level of like an NPR quality podcast. Like, it's really
I've
impressive.
heard the
Uh,
Notebook LM
I mean, you can go to
podcasts. They're
yeah, you can
great.
go to AI4MP.org and listen to our 600-page book as a 5-minute podcast, and you can't tell it's robots talking. Like, it's amazing. So that's one great way to break through the clutter from a fundraising standpoint. Another one is using tools like Gamma, or I really like Nano Banana, which is basically
Nano
taking
banana.
Nano Banana, where you could feed it an article, an annual report, a blog, or whatever, and it will create essentially an infographic that summarizes everything in there as a visual.
Amazing.
And unlike the tools 3 months ago, even that had all kinds of typos, and anytime you were dealing with visuals, it was kind of janky. Like, we've hit that tipping point now too.
Hmm.
And to Cheryl's point, we're at the tipping point with video too. Like, OpenAI just did a deal with Disney, so you'll be able to be your own Star Wars character pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really cool stuff that's coming, and some of these tools are super easy to use, and you can also just play around with them for free.
I love the tools that you are sharing, mostly because I talk a lot about content repurposing and using your own content, but using it smartly. Like, if you have a video, a very long video, why are you going to spend the time to go through and do the video clips and do the edits? Riverside, which we're filming in, which we're recording on, also can do that. They do magic clips for you. There's so many different tools that can actually pull out like the best nuggets and some of the best information. I think it's just working smarter, and not harder. But we could talk for hours. I want to wrap it up, but I know that you are very excited about the audio book that is coming out. So Cheryl, tell me, where can we get the book? Where can we get the audio book? What's up? What's coming on the down the pipeline?
Sure. Well, the book is on Amazon, and it has done really well. During its launch, it was number one in the office automation category
Amazing.
for weeks. It was top 10 in business and finance, which is a huge category and
Wow.
tells us that, even businesses want to
Yep.
implement AI ethically, practically, responsibly. Top 5 in AI. Of course, number one in nonprofits and organizations. So, it's had a strong response. People seem to like it. People tell me about it all the time, which is really fun. So,
Yay.
you can get it on Bookshop, if that's preferred. It's on all of the sites. The audiobook will probably be just on Audible to start, and that should be out in early 2026.
Oh, that's so exciting. And you said something, Darian, about there's something new coming down the pipeline. Did you say
Something
about
new coming
a
down the
learning
pipeline.
cohort? Maybe I
Oh,
misheard.
you're talking about the learning labs.
Yes, the learning
Yeah,
labs.
so, basically there's a few different intertwined pieces of this ecosystem. There's the book, which Cheryl just talked about. That's out, Amazon and all the other bookstores. There's the website, which is AI, like artificial intelligence, the number 4 NP, like nonprofit.org, which is a nonprofit fiscally sponsored by Inten that ultimately is really aimed at becoming a central clearinghouse for all things AI for good. So whatever you're looking for, you should be able to find it there. And then, as part of the nonprofit, besides the website, we're also planning on doing a series of trainings all around the country to
Mm-hmm.
really level up the capacity of nonprofit leaders and foundation leaders at scale. Um, I have to be honest, we're sort of mid pivot around that right now because there's a lot of free content out there. There's a lot of interest in AI, but there's also not a lot of ability to pay right now.
Right.
And so we're really only able to charge $50 to $75 for a conference around AI for nonprofits. We just had a sold out event with Beth Cantor in Silicon Valley. We have a
Amazing.
bunch of venues lined up that are excited to host us and partners. But we need funders, we need partners, sponsors, and underwriters that are interested in bringing these trainings to their town, whether that's in DC or Chicago or New York or LA. We have sort of a whole national series teed up. And what we discovered is, we can't sell tickets at a break even price. And so at this
Yeah.
point, we're looking for partners with whom we can collaborate to really, bring the series of learning labs to their community.
I love that. Well, I hope you come to
Oh,
Boston. So we should work on an event here.
I would love
yay.
that.
So the
And I
book.
just want to
Oh
add,
yeah,
well, I just want
sure.
to add one thing, and thank you, Darian, for saying all of that. Just quickly, I know there are people listening. You might be listening and thinking, I am going to use uh ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini over my dead body. And I get that. Like I get
Yes.
feeling some sort of way about Sam Altman. Okay, no question. I am the co-founder of a great alternative to those LLMs called Change Agent AI. So if you're looking for an LLM that cares about eco-friendly, right, that is built on your values and is designed to keep your precious data on human beings secure and private, I would really recommend heading over to thechange.ai. Lots of folks are using it. It's definitely on everybody's lips. So check it out.
I love that. I will recommend that to my skeptics. The change.ai, and also AI4NP.org. The book is AI for Nonprofits, Putting Artificial Intelligence to Work for Your Cause. Cheryl and Darian, thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful. Thank you for having me in the book, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thanks for your
Thank you,
leadership.
Julia. Back at you.
Yay.
Bye.